We are live. So I am not actually here live, but hopefully it's going to feel like a live. So happy Friday. Welcome to our weekly coffee chat. I am recording this a couple of days before Friday because I am headed to San Diego coming up. So I am very excited for this. Many of you know that I work with Amber McHugh in a mastermind group called Accelerate. And it is a small, sort of high level mastermind. And last year, I got to go to Chicago to meet up with her and my business besties. And this year, I am going to San Diego to enjoy time with them. And sadly, I had hoped to have a whole like let's all get together kind of meet up in San Diego. And I know a couple of you emailed me, but I will not be there with my family. I'm just going to be there by myself, and there will be zero time. One of my business friends is picking me up from the airport and dropping me off, and we have pretty much content going the entire time. And I thought I would have like a little bit of time on travel days, but that is not going to work out. So, anyway, in the month of July, there will be several weeks of travel and other things. I'm trying to finish my book, Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, which I will update you guys on in just a second. But I decided rather than trying to make sure that I'm actually here and live and have the energy to do something, that it would be better to pre-record some content for our Friday coffee chats. So every week in the month of July, I will still be live. It will still kind of feel live here on Fridays at 4. You will have your live chat going on, or you can watch on the replay if you prefer. And we'll have just different topics. So this week, we're going to talk a little bit more about 6 months for life and how I put together that plan. So I'll talk about that in a second. Next week, I think we're just going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions and you're in the Discord server, which is linked down below for you in the description box, you can ask questions there in our Friday Coffee Chat Q&A channel, or you can post questions to the comments here on this live stream, and I will check these as well before I create my Q&A next week. Don't leave them in the live chat, though. Let me go ahead and say that because it's too hard for me to look through the live chat. So wait until this is a replay, and then you can post them in the comments on the replay, which will be easier for me to find. But Discord or the replay here, or I will also put up a little section on my Instagram stories today, which is Friday, it'll be the 7th, 7/7, that you can put some questions, leave those there. So Instagram, Discord, or here in the comments once this is a replay. And we will just do a Q&A. And then there may be another follow-up to the 6 months for life discussion, or if anybody has suggestions on other topics that you would love for me to go into more in depth, let me know for the next 2 coffee chats. So we'll have 4 pre-recorded premiere coffee chats, and then we'll go back to our live streams in August, which I'm just praying and hoping will be release time for Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. So just a quick update that last Friday I did meet my goal for Act 1. So Act 1 was turned in to George on Friday by like 8 p.m. So I finished it an hour or so early and turned it into him. He did not have a chance to read it until today. So today I'm recording this on Wednesday, and he finally got to read it. And I was so nervous. We had a busy weekend, and I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, I need for him to read this so I can tell if it's any good. And he finally read it today, and he was like, wow, this is really good. Like, I'm really into it. He had some questions and some things that he thinks I could improve on, but I knew that this was still an edited, like only a first edit. And George doesn't usually read my books until I'm in like my 4th or 5th edit. So he's seeing it before I've added in what I call like kind of the magic, because I feel like it's the connections, it's that final pass read through where you really emotionally connect everything. You make the twists even bigger. You pull in more subtleties and plants and reveals and stuff like that. And he's getting none of that in this first read. So I was afraid he wouldn't enjoy it, but he said it's really good. So I'm going to feel encouraged by that. And next we need to set up our next goal. So this is part of my accountability with him. So I am going to set up that next goal, and that will be for Act Two. So I've got time on the plane tomorrow. I leave at dawn, before dawn, and I will be at the airport a little bit before Becky comes to pick me up. So I am planning to spend all day. We'll see how the plane ride goes. Sometimes I want to be thinking on plane rides, but it doesn't always work out to be like super thoughtful and working on the plane. So I also have my Nintendo Switch and I have my Kindle. So we'll see what I end up working on. But if I get a chance to work on the story, I will. Otherwise, I'm staying right on the beach and for this retreat, and there's going to be some like work time and reflection time built into the retreat. So hopefully I can get a little bit of work done before I get back next week. So we don't have all that to say, we don't have a goal set yet for Act Two. Act Two, Part Two is in much worse shape in terms of the plot than Act One was. So I have more work to do. But when I get back, George and I are going to go on a date night, and we're going to talk through, now that he's read part of this, sort of collaborating. And man, am I so incredibly grateful to have George to talk through this story with. Like, I'm so grateful. So now that he's read the first part, he can help me piecing things together and coming up with ideas. And so the next Act One ended up being just shy of 19,000 words. And I had guesstimated that it would be 19 to 21,000. So I'm right on target there. So the book is on target to be about 80 to 90,000 words, which I think is really good amount of words. So I'm feeling good about it. A lot of great things going on. I do see that for whatever reason, even though I'm not actually live StreamYard, I'm still recording in StreamYard, and it's still giving me a message that my Wi-Fi isn't doing great. So hopefully it's coming out great, because I'm going to share my screen in a little bit. But if the video isn't great, I do not have time. It's already almost 6 p.m. and I've been working all day trying to get stuff ready for when I leave, and I haven't even packed yet. And the kids want to spend time with me. We have to eat dinner. So I'm like, okay, it's just going to be what it is. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. And that is something that I wanted to talk about with 6 Months for Life too. Many of you have been around, like it's been the same coffee chat crew for a while. And you know that I've talked about 6 Months for Life kind of loosely for a very long time. And it's funny to talk about, because I have a productivity system called HB90, and that is something I spent years working on for myself. And then as I was using it, people on YouTube saw that I had this Kanban boards behind me, and they were asking me how I used it. And then I was able to sit down and think, like, how do I explain what I do to other people? And it was a process that has evolved over the last 4+ years of me being able to explain that system to other people. But it was also years of me using it as a system before I had to explain it to anyone else. 6 Months for Life is different. It's just the name I called something. So it's not really a system, but because I'm a teacher in that way, I feel like it needs to be perfect, because I'm also a perfectionist. And so it's awkward to talk about something that isn't fully formed. But I also know that so far what I've talked about with 6 Months for Life has been helpful to many of you. And so getting more clarity on how I do it, I think will only be helpful, even if it's not perfect. So all that to say, let's please move into this with an expectation that this is not like a system that is fully baked to be taught to other people. It's just me kind of trying to explain to the best of my ability how I use this system and what goes into my thought process. And the other thing about HB90 versus 6 Months for Life is this is really something I have used fully for myself. And it's not really something I've put a ton of thought into, like, how would someone with different strengths, different ways of thinking, neurodivergence, like how would someone with challenges or strengths different from mine go through this program? But that is something that I have thought a lot about and asked people about and researched for HB90. And so in that way, I feel like you can feel more safe going into HB90, knowing that I have really tried to create alternative ways of doing things and explain things in multiple ways. And I've just put lots and lots of thought into trying to make it usable and helpful to people who are very different from me. But 6 Months for Life is just something I do for me. And so I haven't really thought as much about like, is this something that would be helpful or hurtful to people who have different types of personalities. So I want to put that sort of caveat on it too, because if you are not someone who is like high achieving in like Enneagram 3 language or Gallup strengths, I am super high achiever, not meaning I get more done or achieve more than anyone else, but it's just a personality type of like an achiever is someone who always puts more on their plate and feels motivated by having a lot of things and like having like always putting the bar up really high. It's like very what people call type A personalities. And that is me. It's like I'm always trying to it has to feel like I'm achieving something big in order for me to get motivated. And some people are not like that at all. Where if, it may be the case for some of you that if someone is going to ask you to change your life, you need it to be very tiny, super baby, like achievable tiny steps, or you feel overwhelmed. So we all have our own strengths and personalities. And if I ever were to create 6 months for life as a system, that would be something that would really go into it. And in some ways, talking about it before it's a system can be really helpful because some of you might use it and be able to give me feedback on what didn't work for you or what felt harmful to you or what stressed you out more, what that I might not be able to see because I'm so different from you, or because you're the same as me, it does resonate. So it's really, I think productivity is one of those spaces where it's it's often a toxic space because there are traditionally the people that are teaching productivity they're using the same data set, the same like very limited uh research studies that have been done only on students, and then they're saying everyone is happier this way. And most productivity books or productivity systems don't take into account that we are all different, we all handle stress differently, we all have different strengths, we have different ways of approaching things. It's always kind of like, here's the way it works and this is what the research says. And then often because of that type of teaching, we feel like if we don't fit into that exact mold of what productivity means or like what it means to go after goals, that there's something wrong with us. I'll give you an example just from my own life. And I was just talking to Becca Syme about this on Facebook earlier today, is I am high achiever in my strengths. If you're not familiar with Clifton Strengths, I will link Becca Syme's stuff for you if I don't remember to do it, just because I'm travel brain. Somebody remind me and I will link it. But Becca Syme is BECCASYME. She has she's just a fascinating, amazing friend and person. And she has a business of coaching authors on their Clifton Strengths. And the Clifton Strengths is a set of, I'm going to get it wrong, but like 52 strengths or something like that, where you can take a test, just like a personality test, like ENFJ, or, all those different personality tests, like, there's tons of them, Enneagram and others like that. And it will rank the 52 or however many, it might be 34. It might only be 34. Is it 34? 34 suddenly comes to my mind. So let's say you've got 34 strengths. It will rank them in order 1 through 34. And like everyone is going to be different and unique. And so achiever is one of my top 5. And for people like me that are high in this type of personality trait, um, things like Atomic Habits, which people rave about. I mean, this book, I've talked about it before, has like hundreds of thousands of reviews. It's like TikTok's favorite productivity book. Everyone loves this book. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people whose lives have been changed. So it's an amazing book. Like, I think it's probably great for some people. But in it, he talks basically about like goals are worthless and you should be focused only on habits. And if you want to create a habit, then you need to be focused on building habits one tiny percent at a time. And that if you could get 1% better every day, you would be like astronomically better by the end of the year, because habits will compound. So if you're 1% better today, then another 1% tomorrow, it's like interest and it compounds and continues to grow. Logically, I can see the value in this. And a lot of examples that he gives are things like, if you want to work out and become like a super fit, buff person, whatever, then you need to establish a habit of going to the gym every day, right? And so what he talks about, he gives an example in the book of somebody who had trouble building that habit. So what they did for like, I don't know, you'd have to read the book. I can't remember all the examples from heart, but it was like for a month, a guy that he knew got up out of bed every morning at 5 a.m., put on his workout clothes, drove to the gym and sat in the parking lot and then drove home. And he didn't go into the gym, but that was like his first step. And so what James Clear talks about in that book is like, you find if you have a habit, then you find the most achievable, simplest thing. And then you just get like, once you've been doing it and you've established that habit, you get a little better. And there's a lot more in the book. And some of those things are brilliant and they work for so many people. And in fact, when I talk about 6 months for life, I'm going to talk about, I kind of, again, I don't have like words for everything because it's not like a system I'm trying to like teach, but it's kind of like a success ladder or a game board. I'll also talk about it being a game board, but I will talk about this idea of stacking wins, right? And I think that that is a valuable concept from the book. But there are also things that don't fully work for me as an individual from that book. So for one thing, I am not a consistent 1% better kind of person. I just don't work that way. That's part of like 6 months for life for me is like, I don't want to just 1% get a little better and a little better and do like, it drives me crazy the thought of doing something that is super, super simple every day, like just getting up and putting my shoes on, but not actually going for a walk. Like, literally makes me angry because as a high achiever person and for my specific personality, it's just like, it's so, what's the word? It's like so discordant. That's not really the word I want to think, but it's like so misaligned with who I am to take these baby steps. And it frustrates my husband, George, quite a bit because he's always like, stop trying to like get up at 5 a.m. and do the whole morning routine and then failing and then trying again and failing. You should just say, okay, I'm only going to get up at like 10 minutes earlier every morning and then slowly work your way back. Oh, a butterfly just landed on my window. I wish it was a dragonfly. That would be a little hint of encouragement from the universe. But for some reason, I'm just not wired that way. Like the thought of only getting up 10 minutes earlier every day is just like, what's the point? Like, that's not worth it. Like, I won't see any result from 10 minutes earlier. And part of it might be personality flaws or challenges, but some of it too is just how I am wired. And some people are people who are wired to grow consistently for like incremental, tiny little changes. And some people need those quantum leaps, like those big commitments to even motivate yourself. And I feel like sometimes the productivity world doesn't teach us how to be individuals in the quest for changing your life. And so that is something that I would love to contribute to it, but I think it's a difficult task, which is why most people don't do it because it takes really understanding people that are not like you, having compassion, which I feel like I have compassion and empathy. I have interest in it, but it's just a lot of work. And so I'm not perfect at it. So that's a long explanation for what is on my mind when it comes to 6 months for life. But anyway, okay. So all that being said, for me, uh, a lot of what works best for me is to actually set really big goals. So if you ever look at my HB90 goals, like I never clear my board. Sometimes I don't, like I love to set a good, better, best level to my goals. So if I say I want to hit 10,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel, 10,000 might be my minimum, which feels achievable. But then I'm going to also set a 15,000 subscriber goal, which might be pie in the sky, like who could ever hit it. But that motivates me. And if I don't have a really high, exciting goal to reach for, then I don't feel motivated because it's like, oh, it's too easy. I could just do 10,000 next month. Like I just even if it's not really easy, it's just this feeling of like I need to set goals that almost feel like they're impossible or like a big stretch. And that's how I get motivated. Some people are not like that. Some people, if you set a goal that's not super achievable, you just break down of like, well, what's the point? Because that's never going to happen. And so I think part of true productivity for each individual is realizing that there are some systems that are not created for people like you or people like me, that you might have a different way of viewing things. So if you don't fall into someone else's definition of how you should do things, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means there's something disconnected there between how they work or how they think and how you work and how you think. So you're not wrong, you're just unique. And so you have to find your own strengths and your own way of doing things. And for me, I've really come to embrace the fact that I'm never going to complete everything. But if I truly make, and it's kind of ironic because I teach the HB90 system, trying to teach people like to only put on your plate what you think is achievable for you. And that is what works for a lot of people. But I have come to realize for myself as an individual, and so some of you might be like, "Oh, this makes a lot of sense," that in order to motivate myself to work toward my 90-day goals, I actually have to set bigger goals than what I can actually achieve. I have to put more on my plate than what I can do because that's part of my process of getting motivated. And where I used to run into a lot of problems with that is that when I wouldn't hit the goal or I wouldn't get everything done, I would be really hard on myself. And now I've come to, and this is part of like self love and self acceptance, which has been part of my 6 months for life goals. So it all kind of comes full circle. Part of that self acceptance is going, oh, I need to put a lot on my plate and be pushing myself, so to speak, to accomplish as much as possible because that is a motivating factor for me in my life. But when I hit the end of the 3 months for not 6 months for life, but for HB90, my 90-day goals, I need to be able to look at that and go, that's okay. Look at all the stuff I did get done and celebrate the wins and not get upset over the things that didn't happen and instead just see those as motivational stepping stones of like, okay, it's fine that I didn't get it all done. I'm always going to have stuff that's left undone. Now let's plan for the next 3 months and continue to get more done tomorrow, right? And this is very similar to like I was literally just talking about this, and then Becca Syme posted something very similar about this on her page, and I just felt like it was such a synchronicity for me because this has been coming up over and over again about like self acceptance, self love, and sometimes there's just a process of learning how to trust yourself, how to just be who you are and, embracing the things that do work for you because putting a lot on my plate and putting a lot on my goals and like expecting a lot of myself works for me until it doesn't. And usually the doesn't part is when I'm really hard on myself if it doesn't get done, right? So if I could just release the like getting mad at myself or making it mean that I'm not a good enough person, or I can just release that pressure but still use the motivation of putting a lot on my plate, then I'm in a perfect situation where I have set high goals, high standards that are going to motivate me and push me to be my best self. But then I'm totally okay with it when I don't hit that. Then that's my sweet spot. So I would encourage you to really do some thinking, maybe take the Enneagram test, maybe hang out in Becca Syme's writer groups, take HB90, read some productivity books that really resonate with you, come talk about it in the Discord server or here on the chat and start thinking about like, where does your productivity work for you? Like, what are the things that you find exciting and fun? It could be stuff like multiple planners or setting big goals, like putting visuals, like vision boards, up. Like, what works for you and what gets you motivated? And then where is it that you start to fall apart in terms of how you feel? And this is big for 6 months for life, is the feeling part of it. So we're gonna kind of move into a screen share. I do have my iPad is being shared here and it has a weird box around it because I'm using a new software to be able to share my iPad on my PC computer instead of my Mac. So it's going to look a little bit not as beautiful, but that's going to be okay. Um, I'm going to do my best. I don't usually do great at drawing things while I'm also talking because I feel like I don't have patience. Like everyone's waiting for me to draw it. I should have brought my typewriter in here or my keyboard typewriter. But first, let's we're going to talk about 6 months for life, and I'm just going to pull up this. If you haven't ever used an iPad, you can bring this box and then you can write on the smaller box, and it helps your handwriting because my handwriting is usually pretty atrocious on these um, devices. But so 6 months for life is really like, if you say what exactly is it, it is I need a better definition, but it basically is a commitment. I always spell this word wrong too. If it's supposed to have 2 T's, please forgive me, but I think it is supposed to. Oh my gosh, y'all, I can't. That's like the one word I never can spell. A commitment to, um, I don't know. I don't have a good definition for it, so I'm just gonna say it out loud and kind of work my way through it. But 6 months for life to me is basically like a commitment to personal growth or personal change in such that you're committing to 6 months of change in an area that will have a ripple effect for the rest of your life. So it's this idea that, if there are things that you say to yourself, like, if I could just blank, if I could just lose this weight, if I could just move to a new city, if I could just finish this book, if you find yourself saying those kinds of things, and for some of us, we will have been saying that phrase for the last decade of our lives. Like, one of the things I would encourage you to do if you are thinking of doing a 6 months for life of your own version is to ask yourself that question. Also, because I'm doing this sort of last minute before travel, I didn't have a chance to create a workbook or anything like this. I do had some questions that were like journaling questions, so I will link those below. That was just in a Google Doc. You don't have to sign up for anything. You can just grab it, just make a copy for yourself. But uh let me know if you think after this discussion, you would like some kind of workbook to guide you through these steps that I'm talking about, because I would be happy to create it. And then maybe we can walk through it on another one of these premiere, like pre-recorded live streams. But uh, 6 months for life is really like choosing an area of your life to focus on making significant change so that you can feel the ripple effect of that habit or that change or that action for the rest of your life. And it can be a quantum leap. It can be a massive thing, like I'm literally going to sell everything and move to New York City, or it could be a small, incremental, tiny, atomic habit level 1% daily growth kind of goal. And it can accommodate anything in between that. And I think that some of the ways that I think about this is exactly that question of, so like the main question here for yourself is, what, or let's say, screen is kind of glitching, I think, with this connection. The main question is, um, or I guess the main phrase is, my life would be so much better. And I know that better is kind of a triggering word for some people, but we're going to use it. If I could just, whoops. So if you could ask yourself that question, or it's not really a question, but it's just like a phrase, right? My life would be so much better if I could just, where have you been feeling that in your life, or where have you used a phrase similar to that for the last 6 months, year, decade, your whole life, whatever? My life would be so much better if I could just get out of this relationship. My life would be so much better if I could just move out of this town, or if I could just get a job doing this. If I could just make $3,000 more a month, or if I could just get out of poverty or living paycheck to paycheck, if I could just save enough money to have, a new car. Where where are those phrases? And sometimes if you ask yourself that question or ask yourself to complete that phrase, you can really feel the ones that mean the most to you when you say it. You can feel it in your stomach, like, oh my gosh. And then you can actually close your eyes and really be like imagining what your life would be like. Now, if you don't like this word, like my life would be so much better because you just don't like that phrasing, then maybe what you could say is um like everything would come together. Excuse my handwriting again. If I could just, or another similar type of phrase, and we can just let me put a little dot here so we can see that these are kind of different pieces of the same. You could say, I would feel, and you can use the word feel here instead of better. I would feel amazing, or you could say powerful, or you could say proud if I could just. You don't have to use the word just if you don't want to, but I like it. So here's three possible phrases that you could use to start to identify what areas you would want to focus on for the next 6 months that would truly have a massive impact in your life. And I encourage you to not think about what other people would say or other people expect of you, but just truly think about who you are, where you are in your life, and what you want out of it. So, stop worrying about everyone's expectations. Let go of all of the limits that you have on yourself. Like, don't, as you're going through this, don't allow yourself to think, well, everything would come together if I could just move, but because the but is what's been holding you back for the last decade, right? Like, I wish I could just move away from the city, but I have to blank. I have to take care of my sick mom, or I have all these, I can't leave this job. I'll never be able to find another job like this. I don't make enough money. Like, we all have excuses, and some of them are not even like, they're not just excuses, they're real limitations on why we can't do something. But something that I truly believe is the solution is never in the same energy as the problem. And you may have heard this before from like Abraham Hicks or other like manifestation teachers or something, but I truly feel this like down to my core is that if you want something, you can't stay in the energy of the problem. And every time you add the word but onto the end of it, you're just bringing yourself back down, like, oh, it would be amazing if I could just move to New York City and get this life. But so you've lifted yourself up with this dream, and then you pull yourself right back down to exactly where you are, living in the problem life that you have, or the unhappy life, or the dissatisfaction. And you say, but I have this, this, and this wrong with me. And when you're sitting down here, you can't find the solution that lives up here. You can't see that solution. It's kind of like you're on the bottom floor of a hotel and you're wishing for something that's on the top floor, but you're so stuck on the bottom floor, you can't even get on the elevator. It's like, how are you supposed to see and visualize that top floor and get to that top floor if you can't get past the first floor, the bottom level, right? The excuses, the energy of but I can't is doesn't live in the same zip code as the solution to your problem. And I know that some problems are more difficult than others. Like, I wish I could move, but I have to take care of my mother who has this illness or something. Like, that's a really tough one. And I have a friend who's in that situation, and it's a tough thing to solve, right? Because you can't just abandon family and responsibilities. But if you allow yourself to start thinking of solutions for where your intuition leads you, who you want to be, how you want to live your life, maybe there are solutions there. Maybe your mom could be better cared for in a different facility or a different location, or maybe there's a way that if you finally did publish that book, you could start making enough money to provide even better care or to take vacations where you could go to this dream place. Like, I don't know about examples for it, but it's just sometimes when we keep pulling ourselves back into that negative energy, we can't see the possible solutions because we're just not in the right energy and frame of mind to even imagine what they might be. So try to avoid the buts and instead just do the dreaming here. Everything in my life would be so much better if I could just do this. Everything would come together if I could just this. I would feel so powerful, so proud of myself, so amazing if I could just, and see what starts to come up. And actually, what I would recommend is that you take time with these. And again, I'll put this together if you guys are interested into like a workbook or something to make it easier. But sit with those questions and brainstorm it. This is kind of like step one is you brainstorm all of the things that you wish you could change. And I think this is where a lot of people get hooked up to is, or hung up, is this idea of like, well, I could list 50 things that would feel amazing or powerful if I could just do it. Like, I wish I could get my whole house organized. I wish I could lose 50 pounds. I wish I could start taking better care of my health. I wish I had more energy. I wish I got out in the sun more often. I wish I was following this dream. And so we can get really caught up in this idea of like, 50,000 things we wish we could change. But if we try to put too much on our plate, like, yes, I'm that high achiever. And I was just talking about putting things on my plate, but there's a fine balance, and it might be different for each of us as to how much we can really put on our plates. And most of us do not have the luxury of spending the next 6 months just working on ourselves, right? We also have like our job and our day-to-day stuff. So for me, when I plan this way, I've got one, it's tied in with my HB90 goal system. So it's one goal is my writing goal and my writing career, social media, writing goal, coffee chats, all of that. One goal is my heart breathings goal, which is kind of my second career, YouTube channel, courses, planner, like all of those things. And then my third one is 6 months for life. And that one is a goal that spans 2 quarters. So this 6 months for life started July and will go all the way to the end of the year. So it's 3 months and 3 months. And I have to find 6 months for life goals and area of focus that fits into the available time that I have for all three of those goals. And I hope that I'm saying that clearly and it's not confusing, but it's like we don't have the luxury of just like quitting our job and dropping all, like most of us don't. If you're in a period of time in your life where you have that luxury, like I was when I first started doing Bright Line Eating, was trying to get pregnant with Evie, I had a significant period of time where I had just turned in a couple of books and I had like 4 months to just really just work on myself and my health. And that was such a game changer. And I think part of the reason I've struggled to get back to a place of optimal health like I was back then with my PCOS and my hormones is because I don't have the luxury of dropping everything else in my life in order to do those things. And so I'm having to find where they can fit in while I'm also running several businesses, being a mom to 2 kids and managing a house, right? So it's a lot of stuff, but there is room over the course of 6 months to make at least one massive change. Last quarter, I tried 4 areas, and my 4 areas, let's see, I have it. Um, so this was my 6 months for life journal. And I was trying to work on, you know, I had a little thing I read to myself every morning. I had a little bit about what I wanted to accomplish. And then these were my 4 goals: was writing, eating healthy, exercising, and organizing my home. And in terms of this past 6 months for life, I was not focused on a quantum leap. I was focused on small incremental changes because I just knew I wasn't going to have the energy to do like massive changes in my life, but I knew I could start, and my number one priority was getting back to writing. And so I cultivated habits and joy to help me get back to a state of writing, and it worked. Eating healthy didn't work as well. Had some success, but just it's like ups and downs. Exercise did not happen at all, but organizing in my home, I got a lot done, and my house is cleaner and more organized and more joyful space for the whole family. So it's like some things, even these 4 was too much to ask myself, even though I was trying to only make small changes. And so it's so much to try to explain in one 30-minute or hour-long sort of session, but I also set up different, vision boards for each one of these goals. And so what I'm trying to get to with this is oops, that's that's my brainstorming document. What I'm trying to get to with this is step 1 is really to ponder these questions and some of the others that I put in that initial, like, journaling, and try to identify a reasonable, and that is whatever that means to you, a reasonable set of areas that you would like to change in your life. And what I would ask you to do is look for patterns. So if you can, when you have brainstormed answers to this, these kind of questions or whatever, like take these things. I would feel so amazing if I could just and write down all the things that you wish you could change about your life or your circumstances. It can be about your home, or your environment, the way you feel, the way you look, the way you interact, your relationships, your money, your finances, literally anything that resonates for you as an individual. Just think about all those areas that you would like to change and then start looking for patterns. And one way you could possibly do this is like you write them all down and then you take out a highlighter and you say, I'm going to highlight all the ones that are health related, like body, mental health, all the health related ones in yellow, and you go through and highlight them all in yellow. Then you say, I'm going to take all the ones that are related to money and I'm going to highlight those in green. And then I'm going to take all the ones related to like career goals and highlight those in blue. And then I'm going to take all the ones related to my home, or adventure or travel or, whatever. You discover your own buckets and you start looking for patterns. And then once you've highlighted them, a pattern of how many have the most color, or how many items are in which color has the most items? That's the best way to put it. So maybe you'll start to see that like, wow, the whole page is covered in yellow, and maybe there's a few blue and a few red and a few green, but like yellow is the main one. So look at that and then say, which one of these things that I wrote down would make the biggest impact in my life in 6 months? So think of it as like a ripple effect. Like if I actually changed this one thing and dropped it into a pond like my life, what would affect everything? So f- just to give an example, a brief example, for me, my biggest goal for this next 6 months for life through the end of 2023, I'm doing something different than those like 4 small goals because I'm looking for a quantum leap for myself, like a big change these next 6 months. And when I did this for myself and I did all the brainstorming and started thinking about all the things that I wish I could change, I started to realize that almost every single item on the list was affected by my energy and how I feel in my body. And I started to understand that really I have such a great, like for me, because of HB90 and all the other things I've been doing, I have a really good handle now on my career, my income, like all those things are going really well and everything's going up and up and up. But the biggest thing that holds me back right now is that I'm tired more often than I want to be. I'm hormonal more often than I want to be. I have certain health problems that keep coming back that could be cured if I could deal with my PCOS and hormonal issues. I have PMS. I have, there's just a laundry list of things. I have severe fatigue during certain times of the month. And I started to understand through looking at that list of things and looking for patterns that sure, there are lots of things that I wish I could change. Like I wish my house could be more organized and I wish, um, you know, I could have save for this other thing or, whatever. There's like lots of things I could put on that list. But the bottom line is the biggest thing that I could change in my life, like the thing that if I could change it, would make everything better. Like my house would stay more organized if I felt better more often. I would make more money if I had more energy in general. I would be able to play more with my kids and spend more family time if I slept better at night. And so I started to understand that, like, if you can look for the patterns and try to identify, let me change the color on this so I can kind of make it stand out a little bit. Let's just go with like this whitish color. So, because I want to write this down to really bring it out for you guys, is what's the one thing what's the one thing from your list that if you did it, I'll just put did, but then I'll also say like accomplished, that if you did it or accomplished it, what's the one thing it would make I don't know if I wanna say all. I'll put all, but then I'll also put, a lot of the other things o on your list inevitable. I'm gonna explain that a little bit more, but I wanted to write it down so it's here on the sheet. So, what's the one thing out of all those patterns and everything else, what's the one thing that if you actually did this, if you actually changed this in your life, if you actually took massive action on it, if what's the one thing that if you did it, it would make everything else inevitable? So let me give you an example, and this is going to be a little bit vulnerable because these are like my big, huge life goals. So on a career basis, it would be something like this. I might write down that I wish I could get 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I wish that I could have a pool in my backyard, and I wish that I could travel more. I wish I could be invited to Comic Cons. I wish that someday I could have a line of people just waiting for me to sign books. I wish I could have, um, make $1 million. I wish I could write a best-selling series that was like the number one bestseller on Amazon. I wish I could have a TV deal. I wish I could blah, blah, blah. So like all these big career goals. And when I look at all of those, I could identify the patterns, right? But I can also look at them and say, what is the one thing that if I accomplished it, I would automatically or inevitably accomplish all the other things? And so I looked for that and I started to realize that really I'm on my way towards so many of those goals, but there's really kind of two of them, but there's one I have more control over. If I got a TV show on Amazon, then a lot of those things would come to pass if that TV show was successful, because it would automatically make my books bestsellers beyond what they have ever been before. I would probably get a lot more subscribers on YouTube. I would be invited to Comic-Con panels. I would have more people at my book signings. I would get 100,000 subscribers. Like those things would naturally come because I got a TV show that was successful. That is not as easy for me to just do on my own because I don't have millions of dollars to produce my own TV show. So that's something I can work toward, but it's not something I can take a lot of action on myself. So then I also started thinking, well, out of that whole list, if I wrote a series that became a massive bestseller, it would also make all those other things inevitable. So the YouTube channel subscribers would come, the TV deal would come, the bestseller, status would create opportunities for me to be a speaker and to teach people and to have a bigger audience and to make $1 million and all those things. So it's like that is something that I can actually take action on because I can write. Now, I can't create it to be a bestseller. That's going to take luck and skill, but I can write to the very best of my ability and try to be the best writer I've ever been. And that is the one thing I can focus on and trust that everything else will fall into place. So I don't know if that's the best example for some of you, but that is a good example for me that has been working. is this idea of what's the one thing that if you did it, it would make all the other things inevitable. And for me, when I look at my list for 6 months for life coming up, it's stuff like I wish my house was more organized. I wish I could spend more time with my family. Everything in my life would feel so much better if I had better sleep at night or if I had more energy. Everything would feel better if I was writing more consistently and I had a more clear, focused mind. I would feel better if I didn't have these hormonal issues. Like I have all these things written down. And then when I create this list of patterns and I highlight things and I start to realize it, I started to make the connection there that everything came down to this one thing, which is energy. I'll make it nice and big here. We can find a little sticker over here if we can pull up this kawaii sticker pack. Um, what would be a good one for energy? We'll just take this coffee and I'll take it and I'll copy that and I'll move it over. So we'll say energy because I like to put cute kawaii stickers into my notes. But energy. And so then I started thinking, okay, step one is to ask yourself these questions, make the brainstorm, all the things that you wish you could change, look for patterns, and then ask yourself, what's the one thing that's going to have the biggest impact? What's the one thing that if I made this change in this area, like energy isn't one action, it's a bucket, right? It's an umbrella where I can say, if I can make and increase my energy and my positive attitude, my energy towards life, the way I feel on a daily basis. If I can increase my energy, then I will have more energy to get more done, to enjoy time with my family. I'll be happier in general. All those things. So this is a health goal overall, right? This is definitely um, just, you could call it better health. So that's the first step, is to really identify what's the one area of your life that you want to change the most. Now, so this is step one, but another way of doing it, if you wanted to, and you found lots of different areas, is you could ask yourself, in this next quarter, do I want to take a quantum leap? Do I want to focus on one area and make a massive change? Or do I want just consistent growth in, a handful of areas? Now my handwriting is just going to be atrocious. And this is kind of the question to ask yourself is, do I want to quantum leap in that one specific area? Do I have the energy and the time and the focus to be able to quantum leap, meaning that I'm going to make a massive change? Like I am going to, for me, this quarter, like last quarter, I told you I had 4 goals and I was going for consistent growth. This 6 months, sorry, I said quarter, but this 6 months, I'm going for the quantum leap. I'm going for a massive shift in my energy. And so that is what the first step is identifying that shift. Where do you most want to shift? And is it just one area, or is it small, like one big shift, or is it multiple small shifts? And I would say no more than 4. If you're going to do consistent growth kind of changes, limit yourself to 4. If you're going to do a quantum leap, like one area that you're going to change everything, limit it to 1. And we are almost at an hour. So maybe I just leave it here in step 1 and 2. And what we'll do is we'll do just a Q&A next week. Or you can let me know in the comments too. I don't know that I'll be able to read the live stream. So come back and do a comment or start a discussion on Discord so it can be easier for me to find. Do you want to keep talking about this 6 months for life process? Because there's another step after this, is once you've identified these areas, the next step 3, is creating your game board for how you're actually going to follow through with it. Because obviously I'm not going to shift my energy in 1 week. It's going to be a 6-month process. So how do I determine which habits and which changes I'm going to make and what I have the capacity for to change my energy? So that's going to be a whole nother discussion. So do you want to do that for next week, or do you want to have a Q&A next week and we revisit this in week 3 of the month. So let me know. I hope that this has been helpful just to see it in this way. I definitely talked more than I intended, but I hope you guys have been enjoying the chat. I don't know if I'll be there with you at all in the chat because I will be in San Diego when this goes live, and we will be having our retreat. So I will see if I have time to stop in and at least say hello. But if not, I hope you have enjoyed the chat. Or if you're here in the replay, I hope you have enjoyed this look at 6 months for life and this discussion. This stuff is it's so near and dear to my heart because I feel like there are so many people in the world who have so many gifts, so much potential. And because of the traumas we've been through, because of the people that had the audacity to tell us we were nothing, the people who were putting us down for whatever reasons in their silly little brains that they felt like putting us down would make them bigger, like, or just a series of events in our lives or a series of lack of confidence or failures or obstacles that we hit for whatever reason. So many of us have so much more that is available to us that we simply don't know how to reach out and claim it for ourselves, that we don't know how to say, yes, that is my life now and I want it. Even though we may spend, like I said, decades going, okay, I'm going to write that book. I want to finish this. I really wish I could do XYZ. But then actually following through on it and getting motivated and finding the path toward it can be impossible. It feels impossible. And I feel like part of my whole reason for being put on this earth is to help people harness that confidence and momentum in a way that works for them so that so that you can make those changes in your life that are going to not only change your life, but change the lives of those around you. And, you know, I I believe in you. I think that there is something very special about you. And maybe there are things that you haven't been following through on in the way that you want, but I think deep down, each one of you, the things that you desire in your heart. Oh my goodness. Y'all, there's a bunny literally right outside my window. And I've been seeing this bunny almost every day. And you know what? When I looked up, now I feel like I'm going to cry. When I looked up what does a bunny mean for like a spirit animal, it means energy. And I'm telling you, this is a perfect way to end our coffee chat today because I need to take a picture of this bunny so you guys know I'm telling the truth. So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the bunny. We will zoom in to the bunny. So let me show you this little bunny. He's right there. He's hopping along right outside my window right now. I cannot believe it. Bunnies mean energy and fertility, basically, like they say, like rabbits, reproduce so quickly. And it's like that idea of like reproducing ideas, reproducing energy, moving at a fast pace. That's what bunnies can symbolize. And I feel like it's perfect message from the universe right here in terms of signs and synchronicities that this message is needed and that I'm on the right track for my goals for 6 months for life. So um, if you would like a little workbook that kind of walks you through this process, let me know. If you want to continue talking about this particular topic next week so we can finish up the sort of ladder of success / game board concept next week, let me know. Or if you'd rather just do a Q&A, then start leaving your questions down below. We'll definitely do a Q&A if it's not next week, the week after. So I hope you're having a great Friday. I hope that this meant something to you. Um, I, yeah, it meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me that you all are here. It is, I know that I am not perfect and I know that I don't always say things exactly the right way or think of every single thing, but I hope that my intentions are true and pure and that I love you. I believe in you. And I hope that something I said here means something to some of you. So, all right. All my love. I will see you all next week on our pre-recorded coffee chat. And I hope you're enjoying it and you're enjoying the chat. I miss you all. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.